I played every Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm game. Here's my thoughts. This is the third and final part of my Ultimate Ninja series. If you missed the first two parts, there should be a link above, but I'll also include the links in the description. Just know that while I'll probably be referring to them a little bit throughout this video is probably the most standalone in the series. Also in this one, I'm not going to list off the consoles it released for unless it's specifically relevant to that game, since almost all of them were released for most major platforms. I will be playing most of these on PC though. Before I fully get into it, I just want to thank everyone who's watching. I'm working really hard on these videos and really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to check them out. If you want to see what I'm working on in the future or just hang out, I've got a Twitter that I'll link in the description along with the official Discord server that's full of some really cool people. And of course, if you like this kind of thing, please consider subscribing because it really helps me out. Alright, let's get into the games. Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm was released in 2008. The first of the Storm games, this is the only one without the Shippuden subtitle. So the big, huge difference between Ultimate Ninja Storm and the previous Ultimate Ninja games from the PS2 and PSP era is that these games' fights now take place on a big 3D arena. While the gameplay and even the controls are shockingly more similar than you might think, I'm still gonna go over it all for this one. In this game, you and one opponent, for now, duke it out on one big map. You can move freely in any direction. What's super cool is that sometimes you can even fight on walls depending on the circumstances. The basic attack is bound to one button. These basic attacks can be linked into combos. You can also jump, and you can jump more than once. If you do both of your jumps and then do another set of jumps, you'll dash straight into the enemy, which is really good for starting up combos. Holding down the attack button can do a charged attack. These are trickier to land, but they have a lot more knockback than a standard attack. Throwables like Shuriken are bound to another button. Not everyone has the same throwable though. While Naruto uses Shuriken, Shino uses his bugs, for example. If one character uses a throwable, the other character can counter it by using their own. Activating and charging chakra is bound to yet another button. Your chakra gauge is represented by the bar below your HP bar, and you need this to use special moves. Assuming you have enough chakra charged up, you can tap the chakra button and then tap the attack button to use a special move. You can also tap the chakra button and power up your jumps and throwables. At certain points in the fight, usually after you've lost a little bit of HP, the awakening becomes available. To activate it, you charge your chakra, and charging it after it's totally full causes you to go into awakening mode. Awakening mode is a special transformation mode where your character gets a big combat buff. This includes stuff like Neji's Byakugan mode and Naruto's Nine-Tailed Fox mode. Being in this mode not only grants you buffs and attack changes, but also can completely change your special and ultimate moves. Speaking of ultimate moves, activating an ultimate move is done by pressing the chakra button multiple times and then activating the move. It's shockingly similar to the previous Ultimate Ninja games. In order for the move to successfully activate, you have to land it. That means that if the opponent is guarding, it might not land. This game is pretty forgiving with this though, because you can just keep trying. When you activate the ultimate jutsu successfully, you have to do one of three styles depending on your settings. There's command inputs where you have to input buttons in a specific order, mash input where you can mash a button as fast as you can, and spin where you spin the joysticks as fast as you can. Guarding and using substitutions is bound to the left and right trigger. At any given time, you can hold down a trigger to guard against attacks. If you tap the trigger right as an attack is going to land, you can use the substitution at the cost of some chakra. Guarding too much will lead to a guard break, which leaves you completely vulnerable to subsequent attacks. The bumpers in this game are used to call your support characters. When you select your character in the menu, you can select up to 2 support characters and their support ability. The game defaults to selecting characters who are in your character's team. For example, choosing Naruto makes the game default to selecting Sasuke and Sakura as your supports, but you can select whoever you want. Every single Storm game does this though. In battles, each support is mapped to each bumper and has a gauge that charges over time. When the gauge is full, you can summon the support to assist you in battle, usually dealing damage to the enemy. Sometimes the enemy will combo attack and the game will give you the option to summon a support right in the middle of the combo. Doing this gives you a cool little mini scene where the support comes out and interrupts the combo. If someone summons a support character and that support character is attacked before they're able to do anything, they'll just retreat and the use will be basically wasted. Finally, there's items. They're mapped to the D-pad and each one has different effects. Some are poisons, some are bombs, and some are temporary stat boosts for chakra replenishment. Every character has a preset loadout of items equipped. Oh, and did I forget to mention that your team composition or certain battle matchups in this game can lead to, dare I say, battle-specific dialogue? Oh man, I love it. Visually, this game is gorgeous, and I'm not just talking about the graphics. Though, on the graphics, the style is very anime game aesthetic like you'd normally expect, and it's about what you'd expect to see in this kind of game. The big differentiator here, though, is the beautiful animation quality. Every moment, whether it be an attack, a jump, or a special move, is insanely smooth, and there's just a bunch of little details. Like, for example, when Sasuke jumps, you can kind of see his shirt swaying around because of the wind and gravity. Maybe I'm just super used to the graphics you'd see on like the PS2 and the PSP at this point, but it looks just so good. On top of that, the menus and the UI elements like character portraits are super high resolution and super crisp, at least on my display. I've gotta say, I love the main menu in this game. It's a simple scrolling list, but the way Naruto dynamically moves in it gives me big Persona 5 vibes. The modes in Ultimate Ninja are Ultimate Mission Mode, Free Battle Mode, and Options. Not a huge number of modes, but it's the first game, so I guess I understand. Ultimate Mission Mode is the game's normal story mode. The mode is done in a pretty interesting way, almost an expanded version of how some of the previous Ultimate Ninja games did it. You run around in the Leaf Village as a hub area. It's fully explorable with a bunch of NPCs that offer dialogue, shops, and sometimes missions. You can sprint, jump, launch Naruto, wall jump, and even throw shuriken. There's a bunch of little collectibles too, including money that you can get from breaking things in the environment with your shuriken, and scrolls that are used to unlock new ninjutsu. There's even a bunch of interactable elements like puzzles that use pressure plates to open up hidden areas, but the meat of the game is in the missions. You select missions by going to the menu and viewing your available missions. When choosing a mission, you can either do flashback missions, which are story progression missions, or free missions, which are secondary missions that are just basically their own thing. While the free missions aren't necessarily story progression, you still do have to do them to earn mission XP that you then use to play flashback missions. Not all of the free missions grant mission XP, but you still do get rewards like money and items. And of course, the free missions are also pretty fun for the most part. The flashback missions follow the general course of the Naruto story and have you fighting battles through the linear story. Plus, there's also missions you can take that take place in the free roaming areas and require you to complete tasks there. Completing these missions unlocks new missions, and when you clear all of the missions in a chapter, you unlock, well, a new chapter. There are also missions where you can unlock characters, usually from completing a chapter. During fights, there's a lot of times where the fight turns into a huge cinematic scene with QTE events. These scenes are actually incredibly well done and super fun to watch. A lot of them are actually shot for shot from the series, and you can tell a ton of work went into them. While I do wish there were more of these scenes, the ones that are here are fantastic. The free missions, while covering the story, aren't all canon and sort of just like side missions. When you accept a mission, you're sometimes taken entirely out of the free roam area. However, the free missions will usually have you find a character on the map somewhere to accept a mission after a short conversation. Some of them work kind of like the flashback missions, but some are entirely different mini-games. Heck, some of them aren't even traditional missions at all. I got one just for playing the game for a specific amount of time. Both kinds of missions have a mixture of battles and mini-games. Usually there will be a short dialogue scene and then the mission will begin. The mini-games are actually pretty fun. For example, tree climbing is back, baby! So if you didn't watch the previous videos in the series or just aren't familiar with this minigame, tree climbing is a minigame that dates all the way back to the PS2 games. The idea is that you're climbing up a tree on foot and dodging the branches, kind of like an endless runner that you'd see on a smartphone nowadays. On the way up, you can pick up these boosts that increase your overall speed. There's also these little scrolls that you can pick up in this one that give you a free pass to hit a branch with no penalty. There's another minigame where you have to jump through trees and dodge branches. You can collect these speed boosts to thrust you significantly further and increase your overall speed. If you hit a branch, there's a really unforgiving QuickTime event that you can use to recover. If you don't do it successfully, you lose a lot of momentum and waste a lot of time. This one's actually a lot of fun though, because it's kind of like the tree running minigame, but with the added strategic element. There's also a variant to this minigame where the goal is to catch Akamaru. When you start to get close to him, he starts sabotaging you and throws you off. It's got a lot of little QuickTime events to it with pretty brutal timing, but it never feels frustrating or unfair. There's another minigame called Hide and Seek. It requires you to find characters hiding in the hub area. To figure out where they are, you talk to the NPCs scattered all over the place, and their icon on the minimap changes to a little arrow pointing in the direction of one of the hiding characters. The problem here is there's a bunch of decoy boxes scattered everywhere, and annoyingly, the timer doesn't pause when you do the intentionally slow animation of opening them. The minigame is fairly easy, but it's just not fun. It's more frustrating than anything, and it feels a lot like I'm just here wasting time. That probably sounds nitpicky, but I don't like the way this minigame is handled, and I feel like they definitely could have made something better than hide and seek with this shockingly large hub world. There's a gallery in this game, and it's actually located in the menu for the story mode, but only at save points for some reason. It's called the Collection, and you can earn items in the collection by playing the missions, and also by shopping for them using the currency you've earned from playing the mode. The types of items in the collection are figures, ultimate jutsu movies, music, and the diorama. Figures are 3D models that you can view, and I really love games that include this kind of thing. You can rotate them and zoom in and out, and it's not too complicated, but it's still great, and every character has multiple variations that you can unlock. Ultimate jutsu movies are exactly what they sound like. You can select any stage and then select a character whose movie you've unlocked. Then you can select any other character you have unlocked as an opponent and watch the first character use the ultimate jutsu move on the second character. Music, of course, lets you listen to any track you've unlocked, and last but not least, there's dioramas. Whoo boy, let me talk about these dioramas. So in order to unlock dioramas, you need to A, unlock unlock specific arcs, and B, unlock specific items including certain figures and ultimate jutsus. These dioramas then open up and are fully animated figures that include multiple characters. I love these. There's something similar in previous Ultimate Ninja games, but this is significantly cooler, given that it's an actual short scene playing out from any angle that you want. I so badly wish more games did stuff like this because it's so cool. I do have to wonder if anyone else in the world likes this kind of stuff as much as I do, but I digress. I really like this and I sure hope it's a thing in future games. After the story mode, all that's left is free battles, which allow you to fight any characters on any maps versus either a CPU or another player. On the character select screen, you can change the battle options to control the round timer, battle difficulty, ultimate jutsu style, and handicaps. Beyond that, it's just a straightforward battle mode. So overall, this is a great first start, if not a bit light on the modes. The presentation is top tier though, and it's always fun to watch these super tight and cinematic battle scenes. Let's see how the sequel matches up. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 was released in 2010. With this one, I'm gonna kind of do it out of order. The modes in Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 are Ultimate Adventure, Free Battle, Online Battle, and the Options mode. Gameplay-wise, this actually feels really similar to the first Storm game. One of the big changes, though, was how supports are handled. Instead of supports just being a catch-all character that shows up and does damage, the supports now have 3 possible types: attack, guard, and balance. Characters can also have different support types, but you have to choose their support type for the entire battle beforehand when you select them in the menu. The biggest change, though, is the new assist ultimates. So when you use your assist characters, you build up a bar next to your HP. When the bar is full, you can call in your teammates to do a special assist ultimate that integrates the assist characters and your characters all in one ultimate scene. I really love this kind of thing. It also doesn't really seem to be only specific matchups, so you could technically do this with everyone. Also, for the record, I'm using the word assist and support interchangeably here. As far as the assist types go, attack types function like the supports from the first game. They show up and they deal damage with attacks. Guard types essentially stall the enemy and protect you from damage. Balance types do a little bit of both. These assists aren't just useful when you call them, but also when your assist gauge has charge. Sometimes, for example, a guard assist will come in and defend you without you even having to press a button. They can also come in and take your place when you're hit with an ultimate attack. So the presentation here in the story mode is similar, but definitely changed somewhat. For context, the story here begins at roughly the same point as Naruto Shippuden begins. There's no OG Naruto content outside of some callbacks and minor flashbacks. The cutscenes here are actually, for the most part, fully rendered out scenes. A lot of them take some creative liberties with certain elements like how the fights panned out, but they're still entertaining and the story still goes in the same direction. As for the gameplay in the story, while you can still explore hub areas in an open world type setting, everything is now at a fixed camera angle and the secondary missions are completely diminished. You now physically run from mission to mission as you progress in the story in this game, and you also use multiple characters. The actual hub areas are really nice. There's plenty of NPCs walking around and going about their business, and there's also a bunch of NPCs that you can talk to. Some just say random blurbs, while others offer side quests. Also, a bunch of dialogue happens between the characters, even if most of it is non-voice dialogue. Usually it's just a blurb of someone's inner thoughts, or just a conversation that isn't necessarily important enough to happen in a cutscene. I'd actually go so far as to say that this is the greatest presentation of Naruto's world that I've seen so far in the series. Pre-rendered backgrounds have tons of detail, and while, again, the camera is mostly static, it actually moves where it counts. There's also a really great variety of environments you see throughout the story, and everything really comes together in a nice way. It definitely reminds me of the older 3D Final Fantasy games. A lot of the stuff from the last game's story mode is gone though. While you can run and jump, the traversal and light combat mechanics are out. You can still find random little items sometimes, but they're usually on or near the beaten path or in containers and jars. You do, however, control multiple characters throughout the story, and you also have certain points where a bunch of the cast is running around the hub areas with you at any given time. Another interesting change in this story mode is that now your health doesn't automatically recover between most missions. You can use recovery items that you either earn or buy from in-game shops to restore it. Speaking of missions, the missions begin when you go to the required location. Some missions are story missions that push the narrative forward, while others are missions that you choose and accept. The game prompts you before you start to have a chance to heal up and save. This is nice because if the game were to surprise you with a mission before you had a chance to heal, it probably wouldn't go well. The non-story missions that you can accept are basically just side quests. They're what I'd call the video game version of filler. I do like the variety though, but at the end of the day, these missions are just go to a place, do this fight, go back. I do like the little animation at the end when you complete the missions though. Clearing certain requirements in missions, specifically collecting enough stars by performing the QuickTime events properly, unlocks small extras during the battle scenes called secret factors. These are usually just little flashbacks, but they're a nice little extra reward. A lot of them are flashbacks from earlier stuff, or just really really cool shots from the show, but they're a neat touch that are totally missable. These come back in every single story mode in every single Storm game. A new feature in the story mode here is the ninja info cards. Because this game added online play, you can now modify your online profile like you could in the PSP Ultimate Ninja games. You can modify your display picture and your tag. The pictures are mainly just screen grabs from both the original Naruto and Shippuden. So the gallery returns and it's the same as the last game, however there are a couple of extra things here now. So now on top of all the QTE scenes, you can now see the secret factor scenes, and I just have to say, these scenes are still stupid good, like insanely good. The developers have absolutely nailed making these fights feel like they're from anime. Also, for some reason, you can like slightly zoom the camera in and out with the gallery here, but it feels like you're watching the scenes, but in a disorienting way. I just don't bother using it. Of course, in the gallery, you can also view ultimate moves and listen to music. Outside of the special scenes you can unlock by playing the story, the rest of the gallery and the ninja info cards are unlocked in the in-game shops. Free battle returns and allows you to fight either against a computer or another player locally. You can also choose to fight with or without assist characters. Finally, there's online matches. I, unfortunately, could not find any online matches in my region, but I will quickly go over the mode. There's player matches, ranked matches, and a leaderboard. Player matches are just for fun matches, while the ranked matches are for points called BP. As you gain more points, your skill level increases and the matches will get harder. It works about like you'd expect any online competitive game to work. There's also a leaderboard where you can see other players' BP, but I'm not entirely sure how reliable this is, given that it's probably not that hard to cheat. One last thing I want to note, Lars from the Tekken series actually appears in this game. I actually had a gag about this in my Tekken video, which you can definitely check out in the link above, but his design and costume for this game were actually made by Masashi Kishimoto, who is Naruto's author. Additionally, this outfit also appears in Tekken 6, which is a pretty fun note. So overall, Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 is, in my opinion, a lateral move gameplay-wise. Presentation-wise though, this game blows all previous Ultimate Ninja games out of the water. These cutscenes are gold standard at this point to me. Incredibly fluid and exciting animation mixed with some engaging gameplay makes for a really good game. Let's see how the next one goes. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2012. This one is notably the only entry in the series not to get a release on anything else. So if you're wondering why this one's called Generations, hopefully seeing this intro gives you an idea. The game is basically just a game where they took the OG Naruto and Shippuden versions of the characters and mashed them together. As for gameplay, this plays very similarly to the previous two games, but it does feel a bit better in some ways. However, it also feels worse in others. For starters, you can now use the substitution to interrupt any combo against you, albeit you now have a limited number of uses that have to recharge. Also, it just feels a bit faster to play this to me. I don't know if they made the combos faster or reduced like hit stun lag, I'm not sure, but it just feels faster to me. Also, the movement is changed a little bit. If you double tap the jump button now, you only do side steps rather than air dashing directly into the opponent. You can still use a chakra dash though. So my biggest complaint actually stems from the substitution revamp. While it's a great idea on paper, it mainly turns all the fights into mind games as to when to use your substitutions. Because you can use them at literally any point as long as you're either being damaged or about to be damaged, you can use a substitution. While that sounds great, it can make for some very frustrating fights against the AI enemies, especially in the story mode. Not only do you have the AI reading your inputs sometimes and doing inhumanly perfect blocks, but you also have them substituting out of combos that you actually can hit. This leads to the combos that are in the game just not feeling satisfying at all. In the previous games, you at least had to think about when you were going to use the substitution rather than just being able to spam them. This overall really hurts this game, and it makes it feel like a chore to play at some points. The games after this tone it down a little bit, but this substitution style never changes. The story mode here is presented in a very new, very unique way. Well, for the Storm games at least. There's now a story mode for a bunch of different characters, including some OG Naruto and Shippuden characters. In Naruto's case, you can do both. This story is super abridged, so it only covers the major plot beats for both original Naruto and Shippuden Naruto. That being said, it touches on different stuff for different characters, and it never feels like it's retreading the same things when you select different characters. But here's the big thing. This game fully animated some of the cutscenes. It's not just recycled footage from the show either. It's brand new animation for this game. This is incredibly impressive to me. I think that while doing regular cutscenes works for a game like this, animating them is next level. The non-animated cutscenes are narrated scenes with still images. Normally, this would be a bummer for me, but having fully animated cutscenes 100% makes up for it. The progression is pretty basic, it's just battle, then cutscene, then battle, but it is nice to get a throwback to when these games were just covering the regular story. Completing the chapters in the story unlocks new characters and items in the shop, along with the money bonuses you get. Free battle returns and has some extra features. There's versus battle, survival, tournament, and training. Versus battle is about what you'd expect, player versus player and player versus CPU. Oh, and CPU versus CPU. You can also still choose if you want to turn assists on or off. Survival mode is new and is, well, a survival mode. You choose a character and then you fight a set number of battles. The catch is that your health only recovers a certain amount between the battles depending on how well you did. There are a ton of different sets of battles to do that you unlock one at a time though. Once you've completed all of the tiers, you unlock Ultimate Survival, which seems to just go on endlessly. Finally, there's tournaments. There's Challenge Tournament and Battle Tournament. Challenge Tournament is a tournament where you play almost like an offline ranked mode. As you complete tiers, you can fight in higher, more difficult tiers. It's kind of like survival mode, but without the whole HP not coming back thing. Battle Tournament is a more traditional tournament where you can battle up to 8 characters. You can select how many characters will appear and also which characters do appear. The shop mode works like you'd expect, and it's where you can buy stuff for the game's gallery along with some equipable items for your characters. The actual items like ninja tools can be used in multiplayer and online battles to give you stat boosts and other positive effects. You can also choose the substitution item your character uses when they use a substitution in battles, which is actually pretty cool. Buying ninja info card images works the same way it did in Storm 2, and these are used for your online presence. While I couldn't confirm this, it also looks like some of the cards have certain stat boosts with them. You can also buy titles. Once you've bought or unlocked the cards and titles that you want, you can edit them from this same menu. You can edit the image, and you can edit your title. Collection mode is the gallery, and it's actually got a lot to it in this game. You can view your collected substitution items, ninja info cards, ultimate jutsu, images, and movies. There's also a password menu, kind of like the old Ultimate Ninja games. Entering passwords unlocks things like titles and images. Honestly though, these games have set a standard for me with the figures, and the lack of figures here makes this gallery pretty underwhelming to me. The highlight here, as always, is the Ultimate Jutsu section where you can view all of your unlocked Ultimate Jutsu videos. Overall, I think Generations is a good game in general, but I don't know how I feel about the new substitution system. It is nice seeing these characters cross over in this new gameplay style though. However, in all future games, the characters from the OG Naruto come back, so I don't really see a reason to go back to Generations. At least unless you really want to see the animated cutscenes, which are worth it. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 3 was released in 2013 with an expanded release called Full Burst releasing in 2017. So before I mention the specific gameplay changes, I do want to note that there's probably more nuanced changes under the hood between these games than I'm mentioning, but keep in mind that I'm giving my impressions as a casual player of these games. I'm only describing the differences that I personally see. That being said, gameplay wise, this feels super similar to the previous game and also retains the new substitution system. However, the air dashes have been reverted to how they used to work. There's also a cool new addition that may have been in the last game, but I only noticed this time. When you use an assist ultimate in this game, sometimes you get one of those little secret factor scenes like we saw in the first Storm game, but in the normal battles. Not a huge deal, but it is pretty neat, and you see this in future games going forward. While the visuals in these games haven't changed a whole lot since the first Storm game, I do want to note a couple of things. First, the character select in this one is actually the first time we're seeing 3D models for the characters inside the menus, which is pretty cool. Second, there's also now sometimes weather effects or time of day differences in some of the stages, which I think adds a lot of charm and makes them feel a lot more dynamic. The modes in Ultimate Ninja Storm 3 are Ultimate Adventure, Online Battle, and Free Battle, really keeping it simple this time around. You can find the options, but they're bound to a button on the menu this time. Ultimate Adventure is, as you probably guessed, the story mode. Let me just say, the cutscenes here, while not traditionally animated like the last game, are insanely good. The previous games had some great top tier animation, but the cutscene direction and the animation quality got another huge step up. At this point, it's like watching entire scenes from an episode, not just small action segments. A big new feature here is Ultimate Decisions. During some of the segments of the game, you can actually make decisions that affect what happens next, which seems to be a first for the series. You get two choices, hero routes and legend routes. While the overall story doesn't change, your decisions do affect what you personally get to do. For example, the very first decision is choosing a route that either leads to a fight between Minato and Tobi, or a fight between the third Hokage and the nine-tailed Fox. They're both really cool fights, and it's great that you now have a reason to go back and replay the story to see the differences once you've completed it. Also, there are points you gain depending on the route you take, which can be used to unlock items later on. You also get these points just for playing the story. The actual traversal and the hub areas of this game are like a fusion of the first two Storm games. You're stuck with locked camera angles sometimes, but now everything is rendered in 3D. However, there are other times where the camera goes totally into free movement depending on where you go. There's also the return of side missions in the hub areas too. I feel like they made the story mode by taking all the best elements of the last two numbered games and mashing them all together, and honestly, it works. This is the best story mode by far, but I haven't even gotten to why it's so good yet. The story itself picks up at the 5 Kage Summit arc, which is directly after Storm 2's story ended. While I do wish this story style could have encompassed the whole Shippuden story, it's still very high quality. There's also a lot of cutscenes, more so than any previous game. It's essentially just watching the story play out with fights in between, which is honestly how I think these anime games should be in general. The progression is pretty linear in the story. You go from area to area on the hub, and it's sometimes broken up by battles. Before a battle commences, you have the opportunity to mess with your ninja tool loadout. This is where the legend and hero points come in handy. You use them to upgrade your loadouts and unlock slots. And that's it for the story mode in this game. Just kidding. So there's like an entire other gameplay style that can pop up in this game that plays like an action brawler, and it's really cool. It's sort of like Ultimate Ninja Impact on the PSP, but it's less Dynasty Warriors-esque. You fight a mixture of standard and strong enemies and can basically spam them with combos and jutsu. All of the controls are the same as the standard battles, but now there's these added quick time events where you can do a bunch of cool stuff, including teleporting to an enemy, pulling off special moves, and even doing high-speed finishers. This story mode is just the whole package and the pinnacle of fun and variety. There's a ton of cutscenes, which is good or bad depending on what you're looking for in a game, but if you're a Naruto fan at all, I urge you to play this game, just for the story mode, seriously. I know I normally save my opinions on these games for the end of the segment before I talk about the next game, but yeah, play Ultimate Ninja Storm 3, it's very good. Anyways, other stuff. I'm not exactly sure where to say this, but I did want to point out, the default audio mixing in this game is weird. The music is just so much louder than anything else. You can barely hear any of the characters' voices and the sound effects. Here, take a listen. Fortunately, you can adjust the audio mix in the settings, but it's weird that it's like this by default, because it's not like this in any other game. Anyways, moving on. Free battle mode returns and is largely the same as we saw in Generations. However, there's now an added challenge missions mode. Challenge missions seems a lot like a throwback to the mission modes in the PS2 games. Essentially, you have a big set of missions that you can unlock. As you complete missions, you have to fulfill certain requirements or deal with certain changes to the mechanics on top of winning battles. For example, there's one battle where you straight up just can't see the HP bar. On top of that, there's also bonus requirements for these missions, and a lot of times you can get these entirely by accident. It's usually stuff like end the battle with an ultimate jutsu or something similar. I did want to note that some of the characters in this game have a bunch of costumes. Naruto and Sasuke have the most, of course. There was also a special costume for Naruto that you could get in the original version that was a Dragon Ball crossover. It allowed Naruto to wear Goku's gi with the power pole. There was also a Naruto crossover in that Dragon Ball game that let you wear Naruto's outfit. Unfortunately, there's no way to get that costume today without using mods. Online mode returns and has the ninja card editing built in. You now also get login bonuses on a daily basis, which is nice. There's player matches and rank matches, as we saw last time. This time though, there's standard matches, tournaments, endless mode, and something called Ninja World War Map. Ninja World War Map is supposed to be essentially a broad overview of the online activity of the game on the platform you're playing it, but unfortunately I can't really show it off because apparently literally no one was playing online matches the few times I tried. So there is a gallery in the story mode, but it's functionally the same as the last games. The next two games also both have galleries, but I'll only mention them if anything new pops up. Normally, I'd start talking about how I feel about this game, but all I can say is this: play this game if you're even remotely interested in Naruto. It's really good. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Revolution was released in 2014. Gameplay-wise, this one makes a few changes to how the core systems work. For starters, supports now work slightly differently. They now have new types in Ultimate Jutsu type, Awakening type, and Drive type, and every type affects your character more than anything. Ultimate Jutsu type allows you to use your Ultimate Jutsu or a Team Ultimate Jutsu. Awakening type allows you to use your Awakening at any time, however there is a slight difference. The game now differentiates between a normal Awakening and this new kind by calling the normal normal awakening a true awakening. The instant awakening that you get with this just acts as a stat boost without any special transformation or big visual change. The true awakening is your character's normal awakening with all the extra moves and visual changes that come with it. Drive type allows you to control how your assists act during the fight, which you can change at any time. There's attack drive and defense drive. Attack drive has the assist jumping in to support you during your normal attacks and combos. Defense drive has the assist defending you during times like charging your chakra or when the opponent uses their ultimate attacks. Also, sometimes you'll have the ability to perform a steel barrier using your assists in this mode. The steel barrier prevents the opponent from using the benefits of their assist modes. Another new change is guard breaking. If you use the button combination, you can now break an enemy attack or combo by using a guard break at any time. If it's successful, these not only stop the attacks, but render the opponent completely open and unable to move for a few seconds. The big downside to this, though, is that it reduces your max chakra for the rest of the fight. The presentation in this game is great, at least to me, because they really leaned into the combo assists. Pretty much every character has a cool assist with other characters that includes character-specific dialogue and an extra little scene. I love this aspect of the game and think it should be a standard for all of them, even if it is a lot of extra work. The modes in Revolution are Ninja World Tournament, Online Battle, Ninja Escapades, and Free Battle. The menus in this game are very similar to Storm 3's menu, and this feels almost like an expansion to Storm 3. Ninja World Tournament isn't a story mode. Well, not exactly. Let me explain how this mode works. So this mode does something completely new to the Storm games, and that's arena battles with multiple characters. It's like the standard game, but there's now up to 3 other opponents depending on the team setup. You can also choose who you target by moving the right stick. The whole point of this mode is to fight in a tournament and clear every match rank by rank. The goal is to move all the way up to S rank from D rank. Of course, it's not that simple. Rather than using HP, these fights use orbs. Hitting enemies will make them drop their orbs, which can then be picked up. If someone loses all of their orbs, they're removed from the fight. It's pretty straightforward, just like any regular struggle match should be. Everyone starts with 1,000 orbs in the first round. Once the round is over, the participants are then ranked by the number of orbs that they have. If there's a next round, any orbs that they have left over are added to the orb count of the next set of characters. However, since there's now multiple people on the battlefield, the fights can get a lot more hectic since enemies can essentially double team you. There's also now these rails you can jump on to do special attacks, along with traps that are sometimes just set up around the stage at random. However, there's also a whole free roaming part to this. When you start the mode, you select your main character. From there, you control that character on a big open island, and this island is shockingly huge. There are some places that you can't go right at the beginning, but they do open up over time. There's a bunch of NPCs to talk to, along with the tournament organizer and shops. When you're participating in the tournaments, you can also recruit some of the NPCs to join your team. However, sometimes you have to do a mission for them first, usually either a quick standard battle or something fairly simple like a Ruka giving you a quiz. Sometimes it's a bit more complicated though, like to recruit Team Guy, you have to win a couple of battles and then make it to certain parts of the island within a time limit. Basically a mini game, and it actually takes a little while. But once you've recruited them, you're free to bring them into battle with you. Can't recruit everyone at first, but as you play, you unlock more and more options of NPCs willing to join your team. Also, some of the characters that you already have unlocked are available from the get-go. Another new thing is that on the island, you'll also find what appears to be other players, but in reality is essentially their ghost. They're called network clones, but I'm just gonna call them ghosts. You can have a ghost version of you appear on other players' islands and they can fight for you. As you play more of this mode, you unlock more skills and abilities for your ghost that can be employed against other players. It's like a fun pseudo-online thing and gives me the same vibes as how Super Smash Bros. Does Amiibo, albeit without the figures. When you actually want to progress in this mode, you speak to the tournament coordinator. From there, you choose your team and then you choose your character order. After that, the battle commences. Once you've completed the initial round, you then play the next round as your chosen ally with a new set of characters. Another new feature is the lottery. In this, you can use lottery tickets, which you can either find around the island or buy with in-game currency. You can use as many lottery tickets as you have to play the lottery all at once, and playing can unlock you some stuff for your collection. Speaking of the collection, you can now also unlock customization items for your characters, including stuff like masks and little dolls. It's not a huge amount, but it is fun to see. Unfortunately, unlocking them all usually requires a little luck in the lottery, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to grind for it all and show you all a bunch of variety. The thing that I enjoy the most about this mode is that while there's no real story cutscenes or anything, there are little scenes like the announcer scenes for the tournament matches. They're fully voiced and you see characters interacting that I don't actually know if you actually see interact in the story. The announcers also like to talk during the rounds, which is a lot of fun and reminds me a lot of the World Tournament modes from the Dragon Ball Z Budokai games. Oh, and for anyone out there wondering, the tournament mode in this game is definitely not canon. In fact, there's an entirely separate version of the World Tournament called Mecha Naruto mode. This mode is similar to the standard Ninja World Tournament mode, but with a somewhat lighthearted storyline involving Naruto, Hinata, and Mecha Naruto. In this mode, you play the tournament to get Mecha Naruto's memories back. You can also explore the Leaf Village, and it's almost identical to how it was in Storm 3. Honestly, I prefer this mode to the standard Ninja World Tournament mode solely because of the fun story that's going on concurrently to the tournament. There's full-on cutscenes in this mode too, especially toward the end. The next mode is Free Battle. This time, Free Battle adds a new mode called League. In League, there's 3 kinds of battle: Free Battle League, Ever-Changing League, and Challenge League. I'm gonna be honest, I played this mode for a while and I just could not fully understand how these leagues worked, but they do seem like they're modified tournaments with slightly different rules. I could be wrong, so if anyone does know how these work, please let me know in the comments. Finally, there's the Ninja Escapades mode. This mode is actually really interesting. It's a super linear story mode that goes over some of the Naruto lore. The awesome part though is that every single cutscene is fully animated. It's not just ripped from the show either. This is basically its own brand new OVA. There's 3 stories in this mode: Creation of the Akatsuki, the 2 Uchiha, and the Far Reaches of Hope. This mode is probably as straightforward as you can get. You watch the scenes and then sometimes you'll play a fight. Then, more scenes. Honestly, it sounds boring on paper, but basically watching the anime between fights is peak anime game, and I really like it. None of them are particularly long, but they're great nonetheless. Overall, this game seems like it was made as a fun side thing while they worked on the next numbered game. If there was anything I had to recommend, I would definitely recommend playing this solely for the Mecha Naruto story mode and the Ninja Escapades stuff. It's pretty fun. The Ninja World Tournament mode is fine, but it is weird that it's presented as the premier mode when it's, in my opinion, the weakest mode in this game. Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 was released in 2016. This is the newest entry in the series, which surprises me given that these games seem like they've been pretty successful, but I digress. Also, as a disclaimer, I'm playing this on PC and I'm pretty sure I have all the DLC, so this overview will be the game experience with everything purchased. So the intro to this one is the best in the series, hands down. It's basically just an anime intro, but using the aesthetics of the game. There's a Japanese rock song playing in the background, and while I'm not familiar with it, I can say that it definitely evokes that anime intro vibe. It's really good, and while some people might disagree, I do have another reason why this game has the best opening. There's 2 openings. Yeah, there's a standard opening that plays out like an anime intro, and a secondary one with a similar style, but it's purely instrumental and focuses on Boruto and the future versions of the characters. Something about this to me is awesome and evokes this really nice anime multi-season feel. As for the gameplay, they made a couple of pretty significant changes. For starters, you can now switch between your allies during the battle at any time using the right stick. The characters share HP and meter, so it's more of a matter of changing your available movesets when you want. However, you can pull off some really cool and stylish maneuvers by switching characters mid-combo. It's also now possible to play seamless multi-round bouts without the game stopping. The next round just starts immediately where you're standing. There's also a couple of new aesthetic features. At the beginning of fights, the characters now have a clash before the fights begin, sort of like the older Ultimate Ninja games. It's a nice visual flourish that really makes the fight feel a lot more fluid and almost like it had started just as you got there, rather than just having every character standing around waiting for the fight to begin. There's also a new feature called Armor Break, where you can knock off pieces of armor from your opponents. It doesn't affect the gameplay at all, but it does change their appearance slightly, and it's a really neat little evolving battle system. The modes in Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 are Story Mode, Adventure Mode, Boruto's Tale, Collection Mode, Online Battle Mode, and Free Battle Mode. So I'm gonna blow your mind when I tell you this. Story Mode? It's the Story Mode. So the Story Mode in this game has the absolute best, most hype intro of any game in this entire series. In fact, this is one of my favorite game intros in any game I have ever played, and I am not saying that ironically. The credits are still rolling when you begin your first fight. It's insane. I know that some people might argue it's style over substance, but this game, right off the bat, and in all of its cutscenes and gameplay, just makes you feel like a badass. While the story mode works really similarly to Ultimate Ninja Storm 3's story mode, the presentation is still somehow even better, even after I thought it peaked on Storm 3. The cutscenes are now more seamless, and the action is put directly into your hands. I cannot reiterate enough just how good this intro, and by extension, this story mode is. Just to throw out a few things that just the intro introduced to the series. There's now dynamic background elements in the fight, specifically Kurama interfering with the battle. There's the ability to pick up weapons that change your moveset. There's even multi-phase fights and gigantic kaiju-style fights. So the way the story mode is set up in this one is that it's broken down into chapters that you can unlock by completing the previous ones, and there's branching paths. It's very straightforward, and we have seen this kind of thing before. The non-3D animated cutscenes are usually just static images or slightly dynamic images with moving elements. The aesthetic, while not fully animated, does work really well. Completing fights in this mode unlocks a variety of items depending on how many clear conditions you cleared. These items, called ninja treasures, can be used in the in-game shop, notably called the Bandai Item Shop, which I'll talk about a little later. This story mode, while a continuation of where Storm 3's story ended, is not just a beat-for-beat recap of the story. There's actually a lot of cut-ins and flashbacks, like Kakashi's Itachi's backstory with Obito. Mob battles also return in this mode and work similarly to how they did in Storm 3, albeit streamlined a bit with fewer QuickTime events. The next mode is Adventure Mode. The Adventure Mode takes place after the story mode, and the game even gives you a warning if you try to play it before you've completed the Adventure Mode. Adventure Mode is essentially this game's second story mode. It is a bit toned down though. Mechanically, it works a lot closer to the story modes of the earlier Storm games, with the free roam element and a semi-linear mission structure. You can completely free roam, but it's a bit more restrictive than previous games. This is more of a full-on RPG where you run from place to place without any jumping or weird traversal mechanics. You can, as always, talk to NPCs, do side quests, and visit shops. There's also environmental objects you can interact with to get items like breaking pots. Sometimes when you're exploring, you'll get a sudden event, which is a random NPC materializing out of nowhere and offering you either a side mission, or some dialogue, or a quiz. These are usually just short fights or small conversation segments, but it does add a little bit of unpredictability to an otherwise linear mode. The free roam environments in this game are actually really well detailed, and it looks like a lot of thought and attention was put into them. They, of course, are largely made up of reworked textures and environments from previous games, but they hold up really nicely here and mesh really well. I enjoy this mode. It's a lot more mellow than the regular story mode, which is super action-packed and has big event after big event. This mode is just a slightly less focused RPG. Because I have the DLC, I have access to the standard adventure mode along with a Gaara and a Shikamaru campaign. Oh, and before I forget, sometimes you can collect these memory fragments in the open world areas that unlock reminiscence battles. These are just battles that you can play from throughout the Naruto timeline. The final story mode, yes, there's 3, is Boruto's Tale. This one, again, gives a warning, but this warning says it straight up takes place after Shippuden. Boruto's Tale is quite literally the story of the Boruto movie, beat by beat. As a side note, the first Naruto thing I ever watched outside of the first handful of episodes of the original show was the Boruto movie, so you can imagine how lost I was. Anyways, I'm getting off track. This mode is shockingly in-depth. There's a fully explorable Leaf Village post-time skip, meaning that there's now a bunch of new and updated environments. This includes stuff like the skyscrapers in the distance behind the Hokage Mountain. The hub area traversal is very similar to the adventure mode in previous Storm games, albeit with Boruto characters taking the lead this time. There's also a ton of cutscenes which seem to cover, again, even the smaller beats of the story. For example, the stuff like even the shadow clone at Himawari's birthday. I really like that they touched on these small character moments in this. It's a really nice cherry on top of an already fantastic game. Free battle returns, and as always, it's functionally identical to the previous games. However, this does give me an opportunity to quickly say that this game has a wild amount of characters. There's over 100 characters, and while some of them are different versions of the same character, a lot of them also have multiple costumes. It's insane how much variety there is here just in the characters. Online battle is here, and this time I actually managed to find a match. But before that, there's still login bonuses in the form of items, and logging in every day unlocks more. It's usually just items that you can use in the shop to unlock more stuff for your collection. In the online mode, you can fight in online battles and mess with your ninja info card. The online battles include the same kind of matches you'd find in the free battle mode. This includes tournaments and leagues, but the main 2 modes are the player matches and ranked matches. Every time you play an online match against a new opponent, you exchange ninja info cards with them. It's kind of a neat way to keep track of who you played against. Also, Mello, if you're watching this, I didn't lose. It was just opposite day, so I let you defeat me. That's definitely what happened. Yep, I'm not crying. There's another section in the online mode called limited time events. These events aren't necessarily online matches, but they are locked to certain times, at least I assume they are. When I was playing, every event was unlocked. These events are essentially just themed marathon matches. You choose which event you want to play, and the game has a themed battle against a set of enemies. The enemies depend on the difficulty you choose. Sometimes you can build your own team, but other times you have to use a preset team. Collection mode is back in this game, as you probably expected, but it actually does have a couple of additions. There's a new shop called the General Store Bandai, where you can use your accumulated money and items from the story mode to buy collection items and stuff for your ninja info card. There's 2 menus in this shop, Buy and Ninja Treasure Exchange. In the Buy menu, you can use your money to buy stuff for your ninja info card, along with substitution items and, interestingly, dialogue for your characters in battles. While I'm not a huge fan of locking battle dialogue to unlocks, I guess I can forgive it a little bit since they did do something with their My Hero Academia games, and those still had battle-specific dialogue too. Ninja Treasure Exchange includes all the same kinds of items as the Buy menu, but with the addition of character costumes. While you have to use your ninja treasure to buy items in this menu, there's still an additional monetary cost on top of that. Some of the costumes also seem like they're from previous games, but others look like brand new additions to this game. Outside of the store, you can also view all of your accumulated items. It works pretty much the same as previous games outside of the new shop. Unfortunately, there are still no figures to look at in this game. So, in all honesty, Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, from a presentation standpoint, is the best game in the Storm series in my opinion. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that for the package variety, it's the best Ultimate Ninja game you can get. But I will get into that a little bit. First, we have a couple of things I still need to mention. In 2017, a re-release of the first 3 Ultimate Ninja Storm games was bundled together and released digitally for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Switch. There was also a physical version called Ultimate Ninja Storm Legacy that added Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 with the Road to Boruto expansion released later on. Interestingly, these releases made the first 3 games available on PC for the first time. Technically, you've been watching me play part of this collection the entire time. So there was also this free-to-play mobile game called Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Blazing. Was being the key word. You probably know where this is going. This game came out in 2016, but as of 2021 is no longer playable. It was a turn-based 2D action game with gachapon elements. That's all I can really say about it since mobile game's gonna mobile game. I think nearly every series I've covered so far on this channel has had one or more mobile games that got shut down before I could even play them. I don't like this trend of making an entire game and then just killing it like that. I mean, at least keep the servers online and stop supporting the game. Anyways, I'm preaching to the choir here. And that's it for every Naruto Ultimate Ninja game. So if I had to pick a favorite game out of the entire series, it would actually be a tie between Ultimate Ninja 4 and Ultimate Ninja Storm 4. Ultimate Ninja 4 because it was the absolute peak of that gameplay style in my opinion. Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 for the exact same reason. I liked all of the games I played in this series to some extent, and I actually watched the entirety of the original Naruto series while I did it. My whole world has basically been Naruto since I started playing these games. Oh, and there's also some rumors floating around about a new Ultimate Ninja game in development, but unfortunately there's no details on it. I think it would definitely have to dig into more Boruto content to stay fresh though. My dream game in this style is a game that takes all of the elements of Ultimate Ninja Storm 4's regular story mode, but covers the entirety of Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. That would be a gargantuan undertaking for the development team, but it would be super cool. Realistically, we'll probably just get a Storm 5 that's more Boruto focused. Either way, when that game comes out, I will definitely be playing it for you all. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please consider subscribing because I make videos like this all the time. Also, if you haven't already, join us over on the Discord server. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a fantastic day.